In 1993, the Power Rangers aired for the first time in history, and since has gone on to become one of the most popular kids' TV shows on Earth. Inspired by similar Japanese shows, it followed a group of teenagers who would use their fighting powers to combat evil monsters from space. It's perhaps this Japanese influence that meant that the Power Rangers would always have its roots firmly embedded in martial arts culture. As a result, the fight scenes were often choreographed in such a way to show fighting techniques. When you look at the 90s setting, it's no surprise that disciplines were very popular at the time were commonly used. As a disclaimer, it should be noted that many of these fight scenes are naturally over-exaggerated. The athletic ability of the Power Rangers was obviously enhanced to make the scenes more exciting. For instance, they would often use ropes to make jumps seem bigger, and it was almost as if the Power Rangers were flying at times. Let's take a look at what martial arts are used within the Power Rangers series. It's no secret that the Power Rangers were big on karate, and this was probably the most used martial art on the show. In fact, the original Red Ranger, Austin St. John, is a karate black belt who had an instructional VHS tape on how to learn karate. Whether he influenced the fight scenes is unknown, but what is known is that karate was used within Power Rangers. In various scenes, the Rangers would use an array of athletic kicks, spins, arm blocks, and various other karate moves. This makes sense, considering Karate Mania was in full swing during this point, and when you take into account the show's Japanese influences, it's not surprising that karate was often featured. As well, before and after fights, the Power Rangers would famously assume a karate stance to show their preparedness for combat. Surprisingly, Capoeira is also commonly used during the Power Rangers fight scenes. Arguably, this is the perfect martial art to implement in a show like this, as it's very easy on the eye and looks very slick. If you thought that the karate used in Power Rangers was over the top at times, then the Capoeira is like karate on steroids. That is, the Capoeira used is highly choreographed and made to appeal to the masses. Viewers could expect to see multiple spins in mid-air before landing a roundhouse kick, somersaults, and all sorts of other athletic dynamic movements. Capoeira almost mimics dancing at times, and the same can be said for the Power Rangers fight scenes, which were very ahead of their time for the early 90s. This would involve people throwing massive kicks to the head, only to be dodged with a counter-strike of their own. Overall, it made for some very entertaining viewing for kids at the time. When looking at the Power Rangers, it's pretty obvious there was a lot of favouritism awarded to kicks. In fact, if you glance through the fight scenes, the bulk use kicks instead of other forms of fighting. These scenes have almost zero grappling, little punches, and were almost exclusively kick-based at times. This is why Taekwondo was often used to defeat the likes of the Putty Patrollers. For example, sometimes the Power Rangers would use split kicks whilst outnumbered, or front kicks to create distance between them and their enemies. If you are going to base the bulk of fighting on kicks, then it will be stupid to ignore Taekwondo, which has a massive curriculum based around this. Moving away from the Power Rangers' fascination with kicks, they also use Aikido on occasion. The use of Aikido is probably the only other fighting style used, and is done to throw goons to the floor. For example, if someone gets in too close where kicks cannot be used, the Power Rangers will resort to wrist locks to engage in flamboyant throws. These may not be the most realistic throws, nor are they particularly sound from a technical perspective. Nonetheless, you have to remember that during the mid-90s, Aikido was still in full swing, with the likes of Steven Seagal being wildly popular. People may not know that the Power Rangers use Kenjutsu and Eskrima. Kenjutsu is the Japanese art of sword fighting, while Eskrima focuses more on daggers and smaller blades. If you're aware of Power Rangers history, then you'll understand that these weapons commonly feature in Power Rangers when other opponents are armed as well. Whether it's wielding a long sword or a small hand dagger, the Power Rangers are not shy to use weapons when fighting. These weapons include the Dragon Dagger and Power Swords. In fact, in some of the newer series, the Rangers even use guns and other weapons. However, for the sake of this video, we're mostly looking at the older series. The point remains. The Power Rangers are good martial artists to begin with. Give them weapons and they become even more overpowered. Undoubtedly, the Power Rangers are a group of great fighters when it comes to kicks. If you came in range, the chances were that you'd take a kick to the head, or at least a powerful enough kick to put you down. With this being said, they were great fighters in terms of both flexibility and speed. Having said this, you could also argue that their fighting style is far too based on style rather than substance. Of course, this was a show, so the fight scenes were made for entertainment purposes. However, they do look suspiciously Hollywood at times. Basically, if we were to be hypercritical, then the Power Rangers suffer in terms of realistic grappling and also basics such as boxing. Overall, the Power Rangers are still incredibly difficult to defeat and are clearly experts at kick-based martial arts. Due to their incredible flexibility, speed and power, they are able to neglect certain other martial arts and still remain dominant during combat. As a result, they are certainly masters of their martial arts without being too well-rounded.